May 20th, 2021 board meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll also get to do that in person. Do we have anyone for public forum, Kat?
We do not.
All right. Next item on the agenda is board recognitions. The Maplewood Richmond Heights School District Board of Education wishes to express its deepest appreciation to two of our longtime community partners for taking on major roles towards the goal of sustaining quality education for MRH learners and of keeping our community healthy and safe. Special recognition goes to the Visiting Nurse Association of Greater St. Louis for organizing and executing 2 vaccination clinics for our staff in April. The clinics came together on relatively short notice, but were operated with extreme efficiency and were well attended, with nearly all of the first dose patients returning for dose 2. The VNA eagerly returned for our student vaccination event as well. The MRH nursing team actually contacted VNA long before any vaccines were approved, and it was the VNA which sprang into action to schedule our clinics in a swift fashion. Joining us this evening are VNA nurses Michelle Jinkerson and Karen Cruz. Please accept this plaque as an expression of our gratitude, not just for the VNA's contributions during the pandemic, but for all the wellness initiatives you've championed at MRH over many, many years. When it became clear late last summer that the time was not right for students and staff to return to our buildings, the entire community shifted into pivot mode. That included the good folks at the Heights, the City of Richmond Heights Community Center. Families of students in grades kindergarten through 6 were offered daycare at the Heights in order for parents to meet their work obligations. This was an invaluable contribution to the families at the Early Childhood Center in elementary school. And when the district transitioned to a hybrid learning mode, the Heights elected to continue providing the daycare service. With us this evening is Jeanette Days, Special Events Coordinator for the Heights. We have a plaque for you as well. Please share it with your staff as a token of our gratitude.
To administer the COVID vaccines. We have seen with the vaccine numbers going up, the COVID numbers are going down. So working in the healthcare and for all the health workers, that have been at the bedside for those who have contracted COVID, we appreciate partnering with you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for your staff getting the vaccine, and we wish you continued health and safety. Thank you.
On behalf of the City of Richmond Heights and the Heights Community Center and my counselors who work diligently with these children for the last 8 months, we thank you all. You all have been great partners with us. I miss my babies, but I'm so happy that they get to experience school, at least for a small portion of the school year. So thank you all. I appreciate it.
have done it without those partnerships. We are blessed to have them. Can I get an approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to study items. Summer student workers, Chris and Roxana.
So every year at this board meeting, we ask you to approve the hire of some temporary summer workers. It's an opportunity for us to give students some intern experiences and/or some of our other workers that work school term, like food service workers, sometimes help us with our temporary help. Tonight, we'll ask you to approve the positions, and then, of course, you would be formally hiring whomever we interview to hire.
Sounds good. Okay, program evaluation, parents as teachers, by Cynthia Cox.
And I think Margaret is here as well.
And Margaret. Good evening. Good evening.
Good to see you all in person.
Chris is putting it up.
There we go. Good to see you all in person. Here is the 2021 PAT program evaluation. PAT is designed for families prenatally through the age of 5. Our parent educators, Sarah and Colleen, have been with the program for 3 years. The program consists of 4 main components. At home visits, our parent educators share appropriate expectations for stages of development and complete appropriate screenings, either developmental or health. There are 2 developmental screenings approved for the program. Group connections this year have needed to look differently. The program is supposed to have 12 group connections per program year. We were on track to meet 11, or we had met 11, we were on track to meet 15 before the stay-on order made us cancel any remaining events. And resource connections are links to 2 families to connections in the community to support the parents. Okay? PAT having agents, DESE and PAT&C. PAT&C is our endorsing agent. They set programmatic goals that are somewhat aligned to DESE requirements. DESE wants us to have an affiliation or an endorsement from the National Center, but we do not receive any funding from Parents as Teachers National Center. Okay. Go ahead, Chris. Okay. So the next slide is going to be a comparison of the that's a different one. Okay. Of the requirements from National Center and DESE. At one point, the requirements were different. DESE is working to be more aligned with National Center. So for instance, in the area of program supervision, DESE is now requiring program supervision, reflective supervision. So our new ECC social worker, Kayleen Portel, has taken on that role. She meets with Sarah and Colleen twice monthly to go over their needs, what they can do to better connect with certain members of the community and improve our program. Progress towards goals. PAT&C has 20 essential requirements. Last year we met 10. But our program was on track to meet 13 of those. But COVID, of course, shut down our ability to do so. We are required to hold 2 advisory committee meetings each year. Our second one was not scheduled because of COVID. We hadn't had a good handle on what COVID was and Zoom, so we didn't have that second meeting. And as you know, many community organizations last year were shut down, so we were not able to connect families to resources because those places were closed. Program monitoring areas helped us to know where to target our attention. So for example, the milestones record in the online data reporting system that we use has a checkbox. It wasn't checked, so that made us meet or miss that requirement. So now each month, before I do the reporting, I double check to make sure that's happening along the way. 2 other areas that, oh, sorry. 2 other areas that have been addressed this year are the selection of a parent-child interaction tool and the outcome assessment. This was accomplished as part of the QEIP review that I'll go over next. A quality endorsement improvement process. It's required every 5 years from National Center. It's a deep dive into our program and our practices. It causes us to take a deep look into what's going well, what do we need to work on, what are some areas of improvement, and it allows us to think through what other training and support are needed for our staff so that we can work to support those students and families before they come to the ECC. So as I mentioned before, National Center has 20 requirements. The QEIP review is a review of 80. I worked really, really closely with Margaret in working through this process. She and I met weekly for quite a long time to get through this process. We met 65 of those, and we retain our affiliation status. In the growth areas, we will go over those in just a moment.
And I'd just like to commend both Cynthia and Margaret. They had the option of deferring this QEIP process because of COVID, and they've powered on to make sure that we're continuing improvement. So thank you to both of you. I know that was no easy task.
You're welcome. Home visits were impacted during the stay-home order, but our parent educators thought it was incredibly important to continue to connect with families, so they connected with them virtually. At this point in previous years, we would have completed nearly twice the amount of home visits for high needs and non-high needs families. But just to point out, high needs families can be anything, or is a family that has multiple stressors, and that can range from military deployment, low income, a health issue from the child or parent. So those high needs families are the ones that we need to connect with most, and our parent educators ensured that even during the stay home order, they were finding ways to connect with them. And as you see, our number of visits was impacted. Like I said, we would have had twice the amount at this point in the year. But Sarah and Colleen have been very reflective in their practice in wanting to know what they can do to continue outreach to families and working with the community and finding those high needs or non-high needs families. Because the goal is when their kid gets to MRH, we have a relationship with them, we have connected them to resources, and their family is prepared to send us the best care. Developmental screenings are done for children 3 months through kindergarten entry. In the past, the developmental screening was done first. That was a popular thing that our families wanted. They wanted the developmental screening. A lot of our families have insurance, so they weren't as interested in the health screening. So we thought that we do the health screening first, followed by the developmental screening to make sure we are meeting that requirement. So children that have been identified with delays are then connected with resources, again, so that they can better support their family and be ready to join the MRH. Outreach to families with stressors. So this was a growth area that came out of the QEIP review. Stressors, again, can range from single-family households, military deployment. We see a need to connect with that family. So that group, that population. So one of the ways is to increase our visibility. A lot of families with multiple stresses are busy. They don't have a lot of time. So we want to increase our online activity to let them know about the program. Today I had a summative with one of the educators, and she tossed out about 15 different ideas on ways to connect with those families and ways to just be visible so that families know about the program and things like that. National Center requires an annual survey each year. Typically, the survey is done at the end of the program year. Last year, it was we didn't get as many participants in the survey. As you can think back to last year, it was a lot. So taking a survey wasn't at the top of a lot of families' priority. But from the results we did obtain and from digging into the QEIP process, we do know that it's necessary to target families with multiple stressors. We need to increase our awareness of the program to the community, and we need to partner with organizations that service young parents. And our recommendations. So as a conclusion to the program evaluation, these are the areas that our data showed that we can attend to and achieve some results. One of the ways is to ensure the ongoing attention to detail that I mentioned before, ensuring along the way, I'm checking to make sure reporting is happening correctly and thoroughly. And at our second advisory meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, one of the large topics of discussion is how to connect with high needs families. And we came up with quite a lot of ideas and we put them into the whole program. So do you have any questions for Ali or Margaret? That's a piece of art in our kiddos.
I have a couple of questions. The terminology, high needs or families with stressors, are those?
It's interchangeable.
Okay, and are those actually defined by PAT or DESE, or are those just sort of randomly assigned by us?
They define high needs as the stressors that you have. If you're low income, if you're single family, that's how they define it.
There's like 20 different ones, and basically it's from when you're talking to parents, things that you hear them talking about.
Okay. So we identify families as high needs or not. They don't self-select into that.
They don't. Like at
Okay.
the beginning, they do a family-centered assessment where they get to know the family better. And out of those conversations, you may hear, or Sarah and Colleen may hear something that will let them know, oh, that may be something that's a stressor for that family, which would put them in the high needs category.
And we don't talk about them as high needs. The only thing that makes a difference is the amount that you get paid for the position.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see some more demographic breakdown of this, just to understand who is really benefiting from the PAT program. I mean, obviously, y'all have checked all the many, many boxes that have to be checked for this, but I'd love to hear more about the actual, impact to kids and families. I know we have a lot of anecdotal information about kids who've gotten identified through PAT and, thrived in the district later on, but would just, love to hear more. I know that we are investing some into this program as well as being, reimbursed for it. Trying to understand that, I think, would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I just had a quick question about increasing the visibility online. You said that you identified several areas that you're looking to explore. Are you sufficiently resourced as a program to be able to enact some of those
Yes.
steps?
Yes, we are. Sarah and Colleen, they are 0.75 full-time employees, and a part of their time spent in the reflective supervision with Colleen is increasing their awareness online and in the community. We had a partnership with an apartment complex nearby. We were going to just be present in the morning as parents were leaving, but COVID happened and we couldn't go. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Program Evaluation Professional Development Committee, by Christina Martinez.
There she is.
So Christine Demetrian is here with me, and I'm so grateful. She's our PDC chair this year, so she does a great job of facilitating our professional development committee. And Chris is calling up our presentation, and we'll go ahead and get started.
What's the name of that chapter?
It's the first one. Well, it isn't the first one.
about that.
Okay, so PD in general at Maplewood Richmond Heights is intentional, it's ongoing, we're always seeking opportunities for growth and improvement. We like to get feedback and just kind of keep that process flowing. Some of our goals include improving student engagement and achievement in learning, and providing support for teachers along the way, making sure that they have opportunities for collaboration, for coaching, for growth, and just seeking out new interests and new technology and opportunities. Some of the ways that we support teachers falls under like a big category and then a subcategory, subgroup. So we have our new teachers, which is kind of like our subgroup, and they receive specialized training. They get something like new teacher orientation. They participate in a mentor program. They're in a cohort. We provide opportunities and supports for them to receive information about memory, vision and goals, curriculum, technology. And then everybody, all teachers participate in professional development days throughout the school year. They have summer opportunities, professional and personal goal opportunities for professional development, and then some curriculum opportunities. And these are some of the examples of embedded PD that all teachers receive. So teachers can participate in book studies, collect data, peer observation, coaching, just some of the things that we embed throughout the school year that teachers have opportunities to grow from. And then as a committee, PDC is comprised of 2 building representatives, the chair, and the assistant superintendent. And we meet monthly. We work closely with building principals and listen to teachers and really work on plans for the building in that year. We have a learning and leading model that we focus on and kind of guides us. We collect data, we listen to the staff, survey them, adjust a plan after we come up with a plan, and then reevaluate. And some of the roles, like I said, we are the building representatives, so we represent the teachers. So we want to talk to the teachers, we want to listen to the teachers, we want to bring it back so we can all hear what's going on in all the buildings. And then we also oversee the new teacher mentor program, which was our highlight of last year's program. And we also collect data. So this year we did a needs assessment, which we will talk more about later. Here's a little bit of, like I said, that subgroup of new teachers, some of the supports that we provide. So they participate in a mentor program. If you are new to teaching, you have a mentor for 2 years. If you're just new to the district, you have a buddy for 1 year, and you get some time to work with them. You also have new teacher training, and then you're part of a 4-year learning progression, a cohort, where you have a specialized focus each year that incorporates memory, vision, and goals. And here's a little bit more about the new teacher training. So prior to the start of school, new teachers have a 5-day training where they meet with Roxana and they go over the vision of the district, talk about curriculum, talk about building specific needs. They learn about technology and just some programs that they'll experience in their building and in their new role. And here's a little bit more about that mentor program. Like I said, when you're a new teacher, you participate in this mentor program. So you either get a mentor for 2 years or a buddy for a year. And the program offers some time for you to work together. So there's some flat days available. There's some summer meetings available. You work on classroom management. You go through, okay, what does this acronym mean in the building? How do I do this technology resource? And any tips or guidance on how to approach this situation, or how do I request professional development, that kind of stuff. So just kind of acclimating them to the district and their building.
So one of the points of pride of our district, as you're aware, is our professional development program. And part of the reason I think that we have so much teacher satisfaction in the program is PDC spends a lot of time every year doing targeted survey work and or focus group work with our teaching staff. And each year they set the determination of what it is that they want to measure. Christine was on maternity leave this year, so she missed out on the big fun in terms of setting up the program evaluation. But what they decided to do in this year
was to regroup, do a needs assessment, and because this year was so technology heavy and folks were learning technology on the fly, a lot of the questions are around how folks experience training with the new technology, what they learned about new technology, and what they might want to have moving forward to formalize some of their learning around the technologies that they're now using. So this particular program evaluation was done as a survey data collection. We started out by reviewing the surveys that we gave to all students, parents, and staff as part of our pandemic planning around what was working with virtual learning and what was not working with virtual learning. And based on those survey results, as well as teacher experience, we developed a survey that we gave to all of our teaching staff in April of this school year. The limitations of this particular study is that the data consists only of this spring survey. 130 teachers took the survey, which is a pretty high return rate for us. The focus of the study, again, is to better understand the training experience during the pandemic, as well as to determine future training preferences, including needs for training in emerging technologies. This just tells you who took the survey, and it looks like the bottom is cut off, but you'll see that the majority of teachers who took the survey are teachers from the ECC, followed by teachers at our high school SSC, and we're a little underrepresented for whatever reason at MRHE in this particular survey, but not too far off, so we did get a good representative sample. We asked, are you aware of the goals of your CAT and your curriculum action team in terms of professional development? 75% said yes. We had less certainty among non-core content teachers, and that makes sense given the groupings we had to do via Zoom. It's very hard to have subgroups in Zoom. We asked, how many PD sessions were you able to attend even during the pandemic? And the most frequent response was 5 or more sessions. If I get ahead of myself, this was chat goals and priorities. We could go one more, Chris. 5 or more sessions, so 50% said they did 5 or more training sessions this year. The next highest group was 1 to 5, and we had one person that said they did not do any PD this year. I don't have an explanation for that because we did training at work, so I'm not really sure how that result came through, but you know, it is what it is. We did ask perspectives of PD, and again, it's cutting off. This first column represents PD helped me grow. So if you look at the color coding, this green is strongly agree, blue is agree, this is somewhat agree, and this is disagree. We also had 3 people that disagreed in almost every category, so we need to kind of figure out what happened there. But by far, we had agree and strongly agree as our most highest results. Second column is I'm aware of building goals and priorities for professional development. The third column says that the PD sessions I attended were very relevant to my building goals. The second one from the right there says the PD sessions I attended were relevant to my curriculum or CAT goals. And then the last column is the PD sessions I attended were relative to my personal growth goals. So again, pretty strong numbers. In a pandemic year when we had to do most of our training virtually. When we look at delivery format, we asked them about which of these formats are your most preferred formats. Are you very interested in any of these formats? Are you somewhat interested, partially interested, or not interested at all? You can see that the most interest is in the job embedded category. So that, you can see that side notes of that. Anything that they can do in collaborative teams as part of their grade level teaming or their content area teaming. They also were very interested in having peer coaching and collaborative coaching. And so our staff is a very collaborative staff, and they feel that they learn best when they have the opportunity to reflect and grow and dig into topics. We ask, how satisfied are you with training? And so the orange represents does not apply. So you kind of have to disregard all of the orange and then look at the other numbers. You can see that by and large folks are satisfied with the training that they received. We are looking here at the CAT numbers to see what may have happened. We know several things happened in that we had this give up some of the project work we were going to do in professional development to do planning
work and to provide time for emerging tech. So I think some of the CAT work did not happen. Nevertheless, that is one of the goals that TLC and PDC will work on collectively next year to make sure that we've still got the right configurations and that deep curriculum work is happening moving forward. All right, we ask a lot of questions about tech tools. And so we ask a lot of teachers, what are you using? What is working for you? How familiar are you with the tools that you were asked to use this year? And so you can see that the yellow represents novice learners and the green is expert and the blue is everything in the middle, and we have mostly blue. So a lot of these things folks were learning. They are most comfortable with the tools that we've been using for a long time, so It's Learning and PowerSchool. Less familiar with EduClimber, who's our data warehouse, which we used a little more this year as we were looking at benchmarking student learning. So that's an area of growth because we've used it as an admin team, but not necessarily at the teacher level. So that's something that we can dig into. This whole idea of flipped classrooms, folks did a whole lot of that this year, recorded themselves so that students could watch it and work later. So we see that folks were doing it. They didn't necessarily feel expert at it. So those are some areas that PDC will dig into as we move forward. We asked them then, just based on new apps, and these are all like Pear Deck, Padlet, Edpuzzle, they're all just tools that you can use for instructional pedagogy. And again, you see a lot of folks who felt like novices at the emerging technology. And so these are things that, based on the survey and PDC input, we hope to have lots of mini tech sessions for staff next year. We hope to embed that in our grade level teamwork, in our faculty meetings, and to provide some coaching at the building level. Because they learned a lot of things this year that they do not want to go to a waste. They want to continue to move forward. We ask about future training. What is your interest in future training? This particular graphic isn't very helpful, but if you break it down at the building level to look at which pieces of tech, based on age group, based on content area, the principals and the PDC reps from the buildings have a lot of good information about what their staff care most about. District-wide, it kind of all looks the same. And we did the same thing with the various technology training pieces. And we have a lot of folks who are interested in even going deeper, and here's It's Learning and PowerSchool, I'll just point out, we've had Maps forever, interested in going deeper with the tools we've used forever because they found out in this past year, Chris and I have been saying for a long time, it does so much more. This year we found out how much more it can do, and I think there's interest in continuing to improve practice. And then one last piece, because we wanted to understand how technology was intersecting with our curricular programming. So all of the things on this list are things that are used as part of our content area curriculum. And again, in this list, you'll see that folks are interested in additional training, but many folks felt very secure because those are core curricular pieces that we've been doing for a minute. So our results and findings are that we were able to engage in continuous training throughout the pandemic, that the majority of the staff were aware of what the goals were both for their CAT and for the building, that most people experienced multiple PD opportunities even during a pandemic. The majority of staff felt those sessions helped them grow and that were relevant to their various areas of goals. We also note that some PD was sacrificed because of tier pivots, so some of the PD days were converted into planning days and just time for staff to regroup to be able to make those necessary changes. We found out that staff value the job embedded PD in the highest form of professional development. Teachers felt confident using Google Apps and interactive whiteboards. Those were the most comfortable areas. They felt the least confident in Mac Essentials, flipped classrooms, and EduClimber usage. And most teachers reported feeling like novices in emerging technologies that surfaced throughout the pandemic. So those are the things we want to lean into and make sure that we're continuing to support. I think that is moving on to our recommendations. So based on this survey, PDC recommends that we increase opportunities for instructional technology training for both groups and individuals, that we provide additional opportunities for job-embedded PD, and the principals and I and the PDC reps have, you'll see in just a minute, she's going to tell you about their goal areas, but we've been working on implementation plans that are very specific to make sure that not only are we doing initial PD training, but we have lots of follow-up for coaching and reflection cycles, and that those are happening on a continual monthly basis so that it really is embedded and recursive and reflective. We want to dig into the CAT areas, and again, that'll be a joint project with TLC as we seek to better define CAT goals and CAT roles. We're going to try to embed the tech tools into building level meetings as well. And again, just continue to follow up on lessons that we learned during the pandemic and try to think about how we can maintain those things and keep the technology tools in our everyday classroom so that we don't lose those pieces. I'm fogging up, I can't see you, but I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. So in the coming school year, these are some more of our embedded professional development opportunities. Our early release days we meet with our CAT, so like Roxana said, we're working to improve the goals and understanding of our curriculum action team. So we will meet several times throughout the year on early release days. And we will also have district-wide professional development days in which buildings will work on their goals that they have set for the year, which kind of leads to the next slide. So these are the building goals for each of our schools. So our professional development committee representatives met with their building principals and then brought it back to us and shared out what each building would like to accomplish and achieve next year. So at the ECC, they're really focusing on the image of the child and social emotional learning. They are going to be focusing on math and ELA and looking at the curriculum and the progressions of those content areas. At MRHE, they are also focusing on social emotional learning, but they're also digging into social studies and science for assessments, and then some curriculum and progression work for math and ELA, along with project-based learning. And also at the middle school, we're working on project-based learning. We're also looking at having some courageous conversations and restorative practices. We will continue our differentiation work and looking at some new technology pieces. At the high school, they are continuing social emotional learning, looking at grading and assessment, and fulfilling their metaphor. Here's another example of some of that embedded professional development. So this is a snapshot of what our new teachers experience in their cohorts for each of the 4 years and some of the training that they receive. So like the new teacher training, then they go to PIG, cooperative learning, and social and cultural identity. And Roxana leads quite a few of these trainings with this cohort, so they kind of build a momentum and continually reflect and build on their whole process. And then as a close, these are just some of the things that as a committee we discovered were professional development need, and we really focused on listening to teachers and hearing out, and that's kind of what helped us develop this needs assessment survey. So these were the 4 areas we were really looking at. Okay, so we have all of these standards. How can we prioritize? What do we need to teach and get mastered? What supports do students need academically? What supports do students need social emotionally? And then what technology and training tools do teachers and students need support with?
And I think we're happy to answer any questions that you have now.
I have a question. What about, how is the equity training embedded in these?
So we have done and will continue to do equity training in 2 ways. So it is one of the strands in our training progression. And in the training progression, what we really try to focus on is helping folks understand their own social cultural identity and come-froms. And then we spend quite a bit of time talking about both culturally responsive teaching and differentiated instruction. And so that is one strand, but we also, outside of the guaranteed training progression, have held wider summer work so that any staff member can come, and that has varied over time, and something I'm really looking forward to working with Benita on in terms of how we might continue that work and also institutionalize it.
Okay. And is any of the equity training required, or is it all?
We have done at each building, we have done training at each building that every staff member went through. Every staff member that we hire new goes through the 4-year training progression as a requirement, and everything we've done beyond that is choice. So that everybody that worked here before has had some form, and everybody we hire new will have some form, but we're really looking to figure out, again, how to expand that and institutionalize it. Mhm.
Is the EduClimber software, is that something, were you guys a little surprised by the, statement that most of the faculty seemed a little uneasy with that technology yet? I mean,
No, because the way we were using it before primarily was as a data warehouse that we were using to provide data to our principals for use. It does have a module that we have had primed and ready that we are hoping to use more next year, which is the intervention side, where we can actually plan and log interventions and track interventions. And so this year, staff, I think, was made aware that all of that capability exists. Some of our planned implementation was put on hold due to the pandemic. And so I think there are folks that are just hoping that we can get, some of that set up and usable. Just like we didn't know how to do necessarily all the reporting functions in its learning, but we needed to use them this year. So
Okay.
I think it's a really good next step.
Yep.
Can you speak to why you chose in the 4-year training progression to reserve social cultural identity and culturally proficient teaching for year 3?
For year 3, yeah. So we've gone back and forth about all of that. We tried to meet immediate needs of teachers in the classroom. So classroom management is really the first thing we have to get under our belt, and the next thing we need to know is content and curriculum. And so we have tried to layer this so that everybody that works here gets training in all of our core structures the year before we have to make a tenure decision for them. And we've tried to layer it in ways that we think will be hit the highlights and be most useful in terms of their practice. So it's hard to talk about differentiated instruction and culturally responsive teaching before folks really understand curriculum and content. And so we've tried to layer it as building blocks. And I think we can make an argument that any of those pieces are really important. So there's a little bit of trial and error. We used to do the culturally responsive teaching in year 4. We decided that was too late. And so we've reordered. And we'll continue to monitor and reorder, but that's why, it's really trying, particularly for brand new teachers, giving them what they most need in the right order so that the next thing that you're layering on makes sense is really what we're shooting for.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is MRHE scheduled by Angela Carpenter.
So Angela is here. She and her staff have learned a lot of lessons during the pandemic, and they have been having a lot of conversations about how they can be innovative and perhaps rearrange their schedule to better serve their students. So she's here to talk with you about what they have determined.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Good to see you all. So as Roxana said, we have done a lot of learning here in the last 14 months, learning all of the gifts that our students have brought through and gained in this pandemic learning and virtual learning and hybrid learning and in-person learning with masks. They've been so resilient, so incredible. Our teachers have been the same and really just tuned in with where our students are benefiting, what strategies are really helpful for them, where we are seeing a need for additional support. And in our virtual learning, one thing that came up was just this immediate feedback that we continued to get about where our students were in their learning with that instructional technology. We were able to see very quickly how they were doing, what they were doing, take that information and move on. So that assessment, feedback, response loop as part of the instruction process, as part of the learning process, is kind of the undercurrent for the conversation going forward into looking at our new schedule. And so, if you don't mind, really, again, also looking at some external learning that we did, some themes that came up for other folks who are looking at pandemic learning and virtual learning and hybrid learning, and learning going forward here is really looking at focusing your tier 1 instruction in the classroom, and kids as close to their peers and to their teachers as possible, making sure you give space for that feedback process and that what's next. What do we do with that feedback? What do we do with those assessments? And then really keeping a focus on social emotional learning and letting your master schedule do its magic for you. And so, as you can see here, really putting a focus for us in the classroom instruction, building in time for differentiation, building in time for those tier 2 classroom supports for all students, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Keeping our focus again on that social emotional well-being and really expanding social and emotional learning into our teaching and learning. So the 5 attributes of belonging, which is really where you're gonna hear a lot from us in our professional development and our work next year and our focus for students, around feeling safe, around feeling valued, having a voice, taking risks with dignity, and then this next part here is really gonna carry into the classroom for us, into knowing that they are learning and growing. So, with some adjustments that we want to make with our schedule, we want to offer longer content blocks to really make sure that that differentiated instruction is happening, small group, very individualized instructions happening in those longer content blocks. That longer content block will give us time for a mini lesson, give us time for guided practice, give us time for small groups in that workshop, where we're really going to be able, again, to see how students are doing, support them in those individual needs. But then we also built in a what I need time or a win time across the board for 3rd through 6th grade. And that what I need time is not just for students who need foundational skills, but it's for every student in the building. So foundational skills, continuing to practice a particular skill, applying skills across the board, and then extension activities. There's going to be a lot of fluidity with that win time, so students may go 1 week from needing to fill in some foundational skills to the next week, getting to really take some acceleration and some enrichment with whatever content we're working on. But back to that feedback loop, assessment, feedback, and response. When we get that information, that real-time information for how students are doing, we can then spend that time with them daily in their win time and provide the instructional support that they need. So all learners will get support during this time, all students will get that feedback, and all teachers will be involved. And so it's 4 different times across the building, so we can really expand the number of staff who are able to support students, shrink the number of students in particular groups to, again, provide that individual support. An additional change to support learning is kind of looking at a different structure for our 5th and 6th grade. Currently, our 5th and 6th grade students have their homeroom teacher who teaches them reading, and then 2 additional contents in either math and science or writing and social studies. They go to their homeroom teacher, they have their switching partner, and they stay with those classmates all day long. So looking forward, our proposal is that our 5th graders will still go to a homeroom teacher. That'll still be their assigned homeroom person, and they will still follow their classmates throughout the day. But instead of having their 2 teachers, they will have their homeroom teacher, who is their literacy, their math, or their science and social studies teacher, and 2 additional teachers for those 3 content blocks. We will still be able to maintain our 60-minute specials and our 40-minute lunch and recess. And then 6th grade, we will still maintain our loop. So students, wherever they were assigned for 5th grade, will still be their homeroom teacher. They will still start their day, end the day, and have specials with their homeroom classmates. But with some feedback from the middle school and just understanding that transition process to get into middle school, we will create very unique and very intentional but unique rosters for those 3 classes. Rather than being in the same cohort group with their 20, 22 students all day long, there will be 3 separate rosters for students to move about the day as they would like a middle school model. Just that opportunity, again, they know those teachers, but it would just be a more unique roster each of those 3 blocks. But again, being able to maintain the 60-minute schedule or specials and the 40-minute lunch and recess. This is just a sample, so don't get too in love with it, if you don't mind. But as you can see, I highlighted our big focus on morning circles, continuing to give time and space for our students to come in, ease their way into the day, check in, kind of get that temperature check, see how everybody's doing. It's a really important part of our social and emotional practices, our restorative work in our building, highlighting our 90-minute blocks that we have there, and then our win time as well. just want to show you we did our homework. DESE required minutes on the left here. We have met or exceeded biweekly minutes in each of the content areas. And just, again, looking for those opportunities to intersect the learning throughout the day, where literacy can show up in science and social studies and in math, and just see those learning opportunities and that application across the board. We've reviewed it with our 5th and 6th grade team, who's really excited about the opportunity to really be intentional about those academic supports, eager to have that longer block of time for the differentiation in the content time as well. The 3rd and 4th grade team is very excited about the win time and being able to, again, provide those academic supports as well as SEL supports when we need those. And as part of our talk with our win time, being able to, on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, expand our metaphor work into the win time to really help our 3rd and 4th graders get used to the idea of becoming docents and curators of their learning, of the learning on display, and just give them time throughout the school year to do that beyond just the exhibit time. We did get to share with the administrative team and TLC. I'm looking forward to feedback from you as well and to be able to share with families in the future, in the next couple of weeks. Any questions I can answer?
I just want to comment that I really appreciate how you've been responsive to the feedback you've gotten in the middle school about this adjustment, especially for the 6th graders.
Yeah, thank you.
Parent has traveled through that before, and that's an abrupt transition for them, and I think this will really ease that progression quite a bit.
Yeah, I was just about to say that it sounds like this will kind of help ease that transition, which has always been kind of hectic. I know my girls are about to graduate from me, and there was definitely a shock going from going to the middle school. So thank you, I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, well, additionally, with the 6th graders' mindset, you know, they're not 5th graders, but they're also just not quite ready to be 7th graders, and I think this is an elegant solution to appreciate that.
Yeah.
And help elevate that.
To meet them where they are, but look ahead to where they're going. Yeah, that was our hope.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks so much. Have a great night.
You too.
All right, our favorite part of the evening, to admin communications, COVID-19 update, Roxanna.
Okay, so we'll jump into our review of COVID data. Again, we are not out of COVIDville yet, but the numbers do look better than we've seen them in a long time. So when we look at our case rates this week, you'll notice that they have dropped significantly since last week. They are down by about 300 at the state and looking like they're down just a little over 60 at the county. If you keep going, Chris, the transmission rates in St. Louis County is now at 0.74. Last week it was at 0.99, so we are seeing the transmission rates go in the right direction. If we look at our new case rates, we're down in every category, and I will call your attention to the 14-day per 100,000 case rate. It's at 78. So how many weeks in a row have I told you we need to see that go below 100? This is the first time that has happened. We'd like to see it go even lower. So right now, if you think of the CDC revised charts, we've been trying to get solidly in the yellow. We are now solidly in the yellow and approaching the blue. Our positivity rates actually went to the blue zone this week for the first time. So that's a trend we want to see continue, and that's why we continue to offer and encourage vaccination clinics as well. So we are seeing some positive trending this week. The positivity rate is also as low as it has been in memory. So last week, St. Louis County positivity rate was 4.7. This week it's 3.5, which is, again, good news. Look at our zip code data. We are down slightly. Again, those numbers fluctuate. We're down by 1 in the 117 and 2 cases in the 143. This is the best news ever. So when we go to the next slide, we report on current age group. We have normally see that trend line fluctuate in a flat manner. It'll go up and come down. We're seeing some significant downward trend within the last 2 weeks. which is very positive. And so we, again, would like to see those trends continue. I will just interject here. You saw a message that I sent out after the CDC recommendation about masking. I have been in contact with the healthcare team that we've been working with all along. They are not recommending any changes in what we're doing at school at this time because they believe our mitigation strategies are working. We have not had any on-campus transmission, and on-campus transmission in other schools have been low, and so we want to stay the course and continue to do the things that we know work until these case rates get even better than they are now. When we look ahead to what's actually happening at MRH, this is exactly the same as it was last week. We have one current case that's still in the 14-day window. If we look at what's happening within our school district, that prior message was within our entire attendance area, whether or not they attend MRH. This is where we are with active cases at this moment in time and the total cases. And if we go to the next screen, we have very minimal quarantine. Currently, we have 2 students that are on quarantine based on external exposure. We look at vaccine. We are seeing those vaccine rates go up ever so slowly. So we were increasing vaccination percentages by about 4% weekly. In the past week in the county, we are up, just about 1.4%, and statewide it was 0.9. So we keep chipping away at those numbers. We need the vaccination rates to go higher to keep us protected. We are having a community vaccination clinic here on site on Saturday, so I and a number of other school volunteers will be in early, and we're just encouraging anybody in the community that has not yet been vaccinated or know folks who've not been vaccinated that would like to be vaccinated. We will take walk-ins, and again, just doing everything that we can to make sure that this vaccination trend continues, because it clearly is having very positive payoff for us, and we would like to see that continue through the summer so that we can start school in hopefully a somewhat more normal, whatever that means now, a somewhat more normal fashion. Yes?
Roxanna, can you tell us, so I know we're taking walk-ins, what time and what location? And then I think there's a second one already scheduled, is that correct?
Yes, there'll be the second follow-up clinic is already scheduled. Ed may have that information.
We're inviting the public between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. It's coming Saturday, 22nd. And then the follow-up is June 12th, same hours. We're doing it for the rest of the gym lot. We're doing it in the gym. We've got restroom facilities set up, everything that's required.
And will 12 to 15 be included in those as well?
Yes, absolutely. And it's worth noting that you can get, this is Pfizer, you can get a first or second dose. So if you got a first dose somewhere else and you're ready for the second, you can get that. At this one, you come to one.
It was very, very exciting to see the students lined up for vaccines here this week. There were quite a number, and we were just very, very pleased to be able to make that happen.
Is this restricted only to the neighborhood?
No, they'll take anyone that wants to come. I also attached another draft survey, so I did want to call your attention. This is somewhat COVID-related, only in that one of the strategies that we used this year because of the uncertainty was to run an MRH virtual academy. And so we are going to put out a survey either probably early next week. We want to understand the virtual academy students' experiences, so we're asking them what worked, we're asking them what did not work, asking for additional feedback so that we better understand virtual learners. And then I do want to call your attention to question number 6, because question number 6 signals that we do not intend to offer a full virtual academy next year because of the falling case rates, because all of our medical partners are encouraging any student who does not have significant health needs to resume to be in school, and because we, as you know all along, our staffing is very tight, so without really large numbers it's very difficult to provide staffing. We will be offering MOCAP options for people who want all virtual, but we will not be running an academy where we are staffing teachers. So we want to signal that virtual option will be available. We'll likely not have an MRH teacher, but there will be a Missouri certified teacher. And we want to get a handle on who would like that and the names of the students so we can begin conducting a consultation with them and making sure we get everybody properly enrolled. So I wanted you to see that and know that that was coming.
There's also a
And,
reduction in funding for that, isn't that correct?
we did not specifically receive funding for our academy. We have been able to use CARES money, and we made special contracts with the MOCAP vendors and provided teachers where we could, because we had a much higher volume than we anticipate that we will have moving into the next school year. And
Do you
so
have a sense of that percentage?
this is part of the reason why we need to do this survey. Anecdotally, principals have told me that many students have returned to school and that they believe that more students will in the fall, particularly if we see case rates like we saw this week. If something changes, we can pivot, but I feel, I'm not going to say we, I'm going to say the principals and I have discussed this at length. We need to go ahead and do this planning now, because if we wait later, people may not get the enrollments they need. I'd really hate for classes to fill. It's particularly going to be, my concerns particularly are around early learners. Virtual learning is not the best learning environment, and most of the MOCAP providers do not provide early learning teachers, so there are a few. So we want to get ahead of that queue if that is something that a family needs and wants.
Is there a way in the survey to gauge whether this is dependent, responses are dependent on vaccine availability for younger students? I do wonder if somebody is confronted with this and wants to specify, I will select online only if the vaccine is not available for my
Got it.
child.
That's a good catch. We can certainly ask that. That's not something I have in, but,
And Roxana, maybe this is going to be covered later or at a future meeting, but we know that we had a high percentage of kindergarten first graders in the virtual option this year. Are we making any plans at this point for some extra orientation for those kids?
extra orientation in terms
Like
of bringing them back to
into-
school,
yes,
or if
back.
they maintain?
If they come back to
Yes.
buildings.
Yes, that is something that we have been talking about quite a lot, is reorienting students. I think that the kindergarten and first grade teachers, because I was over there quite a lot when we made our return, I think they were pleasantly surprised at how quickly students were able to acclimate. I believe there was a lot of initial concern about how that would go, but it's been very joyful, and kids have been acclimating really well. And I will tell you, I received a letter today from a parent about a particular teacher. I should forward to you. It was just really, it made me emotional to read at how much they appreciated everything the teacher had done this year, and the transition from virtual to hybrid to in-person, and the particular child has some additional learning needs, and what a positive experience that was. So I have every confidence that the staff at that building it's on their mind, and it's something they're living every day. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, and sort of related, or maybe directed at Vince, are we going to do any specific outreach to families who selected to be homeschool students this year, likely because of the pandemic?
That's a good question. That's not come up yet, but that's what we usually do.
At least a invitation to come back, right?
Well, we have, I can say that almost a third of them have already contacted us about.
Okay, great.
Because they've asked about the residency, but the two all over.
Right.
We're waiving the requirement for them to do
Okay.
But that would be, yeah, we could easily do that.
Roxanne, one more question. Are you concerned about potential uptake with the county opening almost fully back up now?
I will tell you that I will give you the answer, because that was asked actually at the health meeting I was at, and I think it also speaks to kind of concerns about vaccine. The health department's take on it is the folks that were most vulnerable have all had opportunity to have vaccination and vaccines. And so while with the county opening back up, if folks are not wearing masks, if they're not behaving safely, there is an opportunity for there to be spread. But in terms of, how do I want to say this? They are cautioning everybody not to open up quickly for spread, but their concern level in terms of hospitalization rates and serious outcomes is greatly reduced because of the amount of folks who have had vaccine. So while there is an opportunity for spread, and certainly folks who are unvaccinated can have adverse outcomes, the people that were most vulnerable, they're feeling pretty good about being protected. So I think there is a concern. I think the dire outcomes that we were most concerned about last year, every time we get more vaccine, become a little bit less of a concern. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I can see. My old eyes can see.
Yeah, that was me. Okay, moving on to grant update, ESSER 2 draft, please.
Right, so per policy, when we have grant opportunities, we should be reporting to the board. We did receive a gift between now and the last board meeting. So a group called Chess Sanity called, and their mission is to expand chess. So they donated 12 brand new chess sets that we have distributed between the elementary and the middle school. So that was delightful and pleasant. I did apply for a grant. I found out about it about 4 days before it was due, and so I went ahead and made application on our behalf. I do want to notify you about that grant. It is a grant through the Department of Natural Resources Waste Management Program. We can get up to $40,000. That would, in fact, fund our pour-in-place surfacing for our playground, which is part of our bond project. And so while we would be footing the bill for the rest, there is a match in that we would be doing the site work and the prep work for the pour-in-place. We're really planning on doing that anyway, so I didn't think you would object if I attempted to take $40,000 off of that bill. I did work with Itner to get the specs. We did get some bids, and so we have turned in a proposal that I believe is in compliance with their plan. I have no idea if we'll get it, but we have made an effort. Also, and these I think you know about, we are set to receive some CARES money. The ESSER 2 money is about $527,000. We have a plan in place. We have already filed that plan, and that plan is sitting with DESE. We cannot expend the funds yet, or we can't do the drawdown to receive the funds until the governor signs the appropriation. So I know Chris has been chomping at the bit because we've already identified what the charge-offs would be for this year, and he's wanting to get that done before year-end close, but the governor has until, I think, June 11th to sign that. So we're just waiting, and when we get clearance, we will be ready to draw down reimbursement for that money. And then finally, we have been notified by DESE that our portion of the American Recovery Act money, or the ESSER 3 money, is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,161,000. So that's a good chunk of money that we're looking forward to. We have met as a team to identify potential expenditures, which would include certainly ongoing expenses related to COVID. 20% of the money has to be earmarked for learning recovery. So as we've talked about with the board, we do intend to continue to employ our teaching assistant support, Cindy's reentry position. We've talked about maintaining our permanent subs for continuity and additional intervention supports, and our social workers. So we have lots of things in tap that can be charged off, and I'm sure that as we work as an administrative team into the new year, we'll find other things that we need to spend the money on. One of the conditions of getting the money, and this is, everything is out of whack, so choose my words carefully. The legislature adjourned before they appropriated this money. And so what that means is this money will definitely not be available to us until they reconvene and choose to appropriate the money. So the money has been signaled by the federal government. DESE has done its work in terms of setting up requirements. We may or may not be able to receive the money. I guess what I'm trying to say is I cannot give you a timeline because our receipt of the money is dependent on the state legislature appropriating receipt of the funds. And so to make sure that we are moving forward, DESE is posting its plan for public comment, as they are required to do by law, within the next few days. And then by law, we will then need to post on our website, and part of why I've attached these documents to the board meeting tonight is we need to make our documents publicly available and take comment on the documents. So we're required to have a return to learning plan and a continuity of services plan. We have had those plans intact and publicly posted on our website since October of last year. So I have taken the draft that we put to the community in January, and I've updated it based on new guidance. Basically, the changes will reflect new COVID protocol guidance, and it will also reflect, I've left our tiers plan intact in case conditions suggest, but there is, on the Tier 2 section, there is a notice that DESE has notified us that they do not intend to allow hybrid modified learning. So they want full in-person learning or virtual learning, and that the hybrids, the AMIX options that we had will not be available. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to see anything new in that plan. The continuity of services plan is essentially the information that I filed with DESE to get permission to run our tiers plan that basically just describes all of the ways that no matter what conditions come, we will continue to serve students and families, and we will continue to provide a robust educational outcome. So those are there as drafts. I have also put the plans in front of our support staff and our teaching staff for feedback. Ed will post it on the website tomorrow, now that you know what that's about, along with our normal link for public comment. And we will have fulfilled that requirement when and if the state legislature convenes and appropriates the funds for our use. And that is my grants report.
Thank you. Next up is apprenticeship update. And is it Joe
Saucet.
Oh, and Sam Smith, or is it Sam? Like the real Sam Smith?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Sam Smith, assistant principal at the high school. I'm here with Joe Sassell. Every time I'm here, we get to talk about really exciting, fun things, so this is no exception. So when I was hired in 2019, I was tasked with overseeing our high school metaphor. I had no idea what that meant, so I dug right in, and within days, I realized that I was going to be doing this without the director. So fast forward 18 months.
So my name is Joe Sassell, and I'm glad to be able to introduce or reintroduce myself to you. I left here actually in July of 2002. I had been the middle school principal. At that point, I left and spent about 14 years or so building a business with my business partner. Sold that business between about April and June of 2016, and then spent about 4.5 years trying to find a fit. And by the time this opportunity came open, I did a couple other things that aren't really a consequence, I don't think. I was really looking for mission-driven work, and so was really excited to be able to come back, and I started here in January.
All right, so the 18 months that I just referred to here. So the previous director departed right as I was coming in, and so I really kind of dug in and tried to survey what was going on. We scattered kind of the teaching load, and so we divided up all of those tasks by committee. Myself, Ms. McAvoy, and Ms. Bryan at the time, so they took over the teaching load, and I was trying to supervise and support the program work. Last summer, fall, we tried to fill the position, and we were successful. However, that did not end up panning out, and so we needed to rehire for the position in December, and that is when Joe came on the scene. So, based on the just overall observations, like I keep saying, we did some work with Roxana when she was doing the curriculum audit, and we realized we have several courses in the course book, and not all of them were directly aligned to the metaphor. So we've had this really awesome opportunity over the last year to figure out which courses do match with the mission and vision of the High School Metaphor Schools Apprenticeship, and which ones maybe or passion projects or came up for a different reason. And so Joe is going to be doing some work this summer to revise and align curriculum, which came from that audit. I have been working on a pilot this semester, the last 4 or 5 months, and I've been talking to a lot of our students. And they resoundingly told me that they were not comfortable even defining the word apprenticeship. They remember school as studio and school as museum. They remember the expeditions from middle school, but when they came here, there was nothing that they could really pinpoint as an experience that would be apprenticeship. And so we have this really amazing opportunity now to blaze some new trails and just create a program for kids that will have that meaningful experience for them that they'll be able to take away and then speak to it the way that they've been able to speak to the other metaphors. So we saw some internal and external opportunities here. So we realized that we have a few things already in place, particularly around our CTE work, and we're expanding that in the fall with computer science, but with like Pam's supervised business experience, with Otto's print shop, those are just guaranteed opportunities for kids, but really we're only impacting 5 to 10 at a time, so it's a very small group of kids. There's a gap in our humanities that we've found. Joe has really dug in working with kids and realizing that there are a lot of opportunities there to create meaningful internships in those other courses. And then we looked at really what the apprenticeship courses are providing kids. We had been only offering like a section every semester. So again, that's only impacting 10 to 15, maybe 20 kids at a time. So it's very limited. We're seeing a lot of new projects based on the work that Joe's doing, and he's gonna show you some of those highlights soon, which we're really excited about. I'll let him take the shine there. Externally, we realized that after the one-on-one meetings, our kids are hungry for experiences. They wanna do things like learn aviation and flying planes. And actually one of our grads, Joy Williams last year, is in school for that. But not because of anything that she did with us, just because she sought it out. And we have some kids here that are also interested in that Joe's working with to get them an opportunity. They have interests in firefighting, in graphic design, and just some things that we haven't been able to offer, but we know that our community has those opportunities for kids and has those partnerships there available. We just have to create them and get our kids into the field.
Okay, so as I was preparing and when I started here January 4th, one of the first things I did was read the description of the website. And what stood out of this description is it's my work is really a combination of coursework and experiences for kids. So as we move on to the next slide, taking that sort of nice website language and turning it into action, what we're really looking for on the opportunity side, and one of the things Roxana directed us to do is she pushed us on this word authentic. And we talked to the kids about what authentic means and those authentic experiences beyond the classroom for every student during their 4 years in high school. So the way our working definition or our criteria for those are first, that the work the kids do through the experiences reflects a passion or a professional interest they have. So that's the first piece, that they have that investment personally. Second is that it's authentic, meaningful work that's valued by the people around them, and we'll show some examples of that in a moment. But that they feel like it's important and others around them feel like it's important. And third is that we want to build transferable skills. So some of the things the kids do on the internship side, they won't necessarily do that professionally, but they'll learn things that can transfer. And we know research tells us most of our graduates will have multiple professional experiences. The days of coming through your education and taking one job and doing it throughout are probably long over for most of us. So Sam mentioned the curriculum part. As we move to the next slide, the work this summer under Roxana and Sam's direction, sorry, I'm having mask issues here. Under Matt, we're really working on a 3-course progression. So those 3 courses, from applied cornerstones that we'd like as many freshmen and sophomores to take as possible, to the intro to internship class, which is now a hard prerequisite for internship. We want to make sure that that's a 3-course progression. We'll work this summer on having the applied cornerstones class reach back and align with the middle school cornerstones class to start that 6-year experience and having them in the building, there's obviously an opportunity there. One of the exciting but a little bit daunting things for me, candidly, is Sam mentioned the limited course offerings. My position requires me to teach half the day and work on do this work for half the day. In the 2021-22 school year, we're going to go, it looks like, from 55 enrolled kids in these classes to 115. So we're going to go from 22 intro to internship students this year to 65 next year, 18 internship on-campus students to 40. And the applied number has gone from 15 to 10, but we're kind of re-identifying what that class is and working it through. We think that number will come up as well. So the reason I say that's daunting is that's a lot more kids to directly instruct in addition to growing the other areas. So I'm not bored day to day, so by any means. So the program progression, I guess, Sam, we turn that back to you.
Yeah. So in addition to all the curriculum stuff, we realized that that's not enough to get every kid a guaranteed experience. So we need to be looking at the 9 through 12 experience as a whole and what our entire staff can do and rally around to support this work. So part of my pilot with Joe's kids in those classes this year, we're test driving some assessments. So I had his students take a variety of personality tests, strengths assessments, and what's the third group of assessments?
Personality, strength,
interest inventories, yes. So they took a lot of these and then filled out Google Docs or Google surveys to let me know, was it kid friendly? Did they understand? Could they read the results? Did this align with their identity or their personal identity? And these kids were 9th through 12th graders in his intro to internship and applied cornerstones classes. And some of them were more popular than others. The color personality test, every single kid that took that one thought it hit the nail right on the head. They highly recommended I use that one again. And so based on that data that I collected from them, this is kind of a 9 through 12 kind of outline of what we think we're going to do here. So we have the advisory courses for students, and we're going to push these out at every grade level. So at the 9th grade, they will work on personality assessments. We'll have guest experts in a lot of our classes. Joe will work with our staff to kind of align partnerships there. And then any available career fairs, if those are back up and running. Like we had a lot of plans for those this school year with some of our consultant work that were obviously tabled for COVID. At the 10th grade, we're going to use the Naviance interest inventories that they have already used in middle school. So we'll bring those back up, have them start to work on their profiles, something that we already use. We underuse that tool actually. So Joe and I are learning more about that. Continue with guest experts and career fairs. At that 11th and 12th grade year, we really ramp up the intensive kind of apprenticeship experience here for them. They're looking at a strengths assessment. We're getting into job shadowing opportunities. This is also the year that A+ kicks in for them. And so like right now I'm meeting with a lot of the juniors and saying, what's your plan to get these 50 hours? And 12.5 hours of the 50, if they're going for A+, can be job shadowing. So this is a great alignment here for work that we're already doing. We're looking at college fairs at this point, internships if they're taking those courses, and some post-secondary planning that Joe will be supporting. And then at the 12th grade year, they'll kind of wrap all that up. They can take any of the assessments again. I'm actually going to recommend that they take them all again to see how they've grown over the course of their 4 years with us. Continue the job shadowing, continue the fairs, etc. The big focus of these one-on-ones that Joe's found is that our kids benefit from a customized experience. And in the past, we've been able to do internships based on kind of the adults that we were able to find that could host them. Instead, so going adult first versus kid interest first. And we're really throwing that whole model away and starting over and starting with the kid interest. And Joe has been working tirelessly to match and find really creative opportunities for kids that does that. And so we have these kind of 3 layers of support here. So we've been requested, or Joe's been sought out to support just getting summer jobs, just getting jobs in general by both parents and students. And that we find fits in his job description when it aligns with skills, with apprenticeship skills, something that is aligned to their post-secondary plans. So he has been the kind of point person when partners reach out to us and say, hey, do you have students that are interested in XYZ? And so then he will meet with them. He's created a lot of Zooms. He's held a lot of open house type forums for those jobs, and we've gotten some students, quite a few of those. Job shadowing internships kind of go together here, but as you'll see on these other slides, like it just depends on what the kid wants to do and what they're interested in. So we want to leave it a little bit open because this could look different from kid to kid, from year to year.
So, title of this slide is just, it's a challenge, you know, trying to reach every student. And so as Sam was mentioning, some kids are very directed, really have an idea where their passions are, and others are trying to figure the whole thing out. So the need for one-on-one conversations, we're seeing that constantly. You know, one size fits one is a little bit of a cliche nowadays to a point, but it really, you know, it applies to teenagers always. So with that, what we're really seeing is, first of all, the assessment piece. I'm going to do some more training in Naviance this summer, and we're finding that we have tools that we're underutilizing. And just as a quick aside, brevity is not my strength, and I know I'm supposed to move through this kind of quickly. But my intro to internship class was fascinated with the Myers-Briggs, and you can. Our Naviance, there's a do what you are survey that provides the Myers-Briggs profile for every kid. And this intro class, the affirming conversations they had that, yeah, that's completely you, and that's why you're a theater kid, and that's why I'm not a theater kid, but I can do this over here. It was really validating for the kids in a way that you almost have to do that piece by piece, student by student. The second thing we're learning is the kids, we want them to learn to advocate for themselves. So really the kids I'm getting to first are kids that advocate for themselves. A parent that gets in touch with me and hears, like one of my favorites was, well, I heard you did this for the kid with the real estate internship this summer. My kid wants to be a pilot, what can you do for her? But, oh boy. So we're pretty close to getting her placed at Boeing, which would be really exciting this summer. But each of those, so a parent advocate is one piece, and then the last piece is a staff advocate, where somebody comes and says, the other day, Chris Rodenberg, she's just really a talent, wants a leadership internship related to student council, which we have some ideas about how we're going to do that. But the idea of finding each student a voice, I'm painfully aware of the fact that there's students walking the hallway today that need these experiences, that haven't had one of those three things happen. They haven't advocated for themselves yet. They haven't had it. They don't have the position for a parent to do that or a staff member. So we're trying to fight the good fight and get there. So part of that work this summer, besides the course progression, is trying to systematize the opportunities as much as we can, so kids have a better and better knowledge of what's out there through a database and can sort of at least look at the menu and start thinking about where they might fit. And then lastly, we're hustling against time to connect this to middle school transition. And one of our initial goals is the first Career Connections newsletter will be out next week. The print shop created the template and so forth. But we want to start getting those newsletters in the hands of the 8th graders and see what we can do to have them start consciously thinking we're going from expedition to internship. So what Sam mentioned, it's terrific that they remember school as studio, and they remember school as museum, and they remember the expeditions, but we want to build this identity. So with that, now the fun part, a few highlights that we were asked to share. So the first one, this was a project. 5 of my intern kids and 1 kid who was in early college that I was working with separately got together and decided that they, through a whole process that I'm not going to get too granular with, decided to make a documentary. And the documentary is finished. We're going to release it on YouTube next week. The kids wanted to see it first themselves. It's entitled Pandemic Aftermath, an MRH documentary. And it's completely student work. That was going to happen because I don't know anything about making documentaries. But we did find a community mentor who works for Anheuser-Busch now, who's a documentary filmmaker, that met with us multiple times and mentored the director a little bit. And for me, the most rewarding thing of this is when you get a chance to see it, 5 different stories of 5 kids that don't have a lot of common ground, but they have this common experience. And what they've really done, what we told them, is they've created a digital time capsule of this experience around the COVID pandemic that nobody else has ever had. So we're really proud of them, and it's not ready for the Sundance Film Festival, but my biased opinion is that it's really good. Really good. So as far as job shadowing, we had a senior named Nina who was interested in law enforcement. And since we couldn't go out for job shadowing, she met virtually with a gentleman up there, DeAndre Davis, who's an old friend of mine. He's retired from the St. Louis PD, and he runs the He runs security for the St. Louis Public Schools. So he sat down with us and explained to Nina all the different educational and job experience paths out of school for law enforcement. And this was something that the consultant, one of the consultants has helped me see. The best result here is Nina decided she didn't want to go into law enforcement. Which, for a student to realize, and what I've started to learn is realizing where you don't fit is really important. So two good things came out of that. Nina's going to go in another direction out of high school that's more constructive for her purpose in life. And second, from this Zoom and from talking to DeAndre, who's an old friend, I'm so much better equipped the next time we have a kid who's interested in law enforcement to show them the different paths. So another job shadow example we're going to see is that's another old friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Ari Holiday, who's the director of the Channel 5 News, long time. So we had another student, Danny, who was interested in broadcast journalism, documentary filmmaking. She was involved in the documentary. She gave, I don't know if any of you saw it or recall, she gave a phenomenal speech last year as part of the speech and debate. And so Art actually watched the speech before he met with her. And she watched a piece he had done about a year ago on a similar topic having to do with race relations in America. And they had this remarkable conversation. It actually went over an hour. You know, we scheduled it for 45 minutes. And it really opened up some possibilities to Danny. She has an open offer when Gannett, who owns Channel 5, opens up their restrictions, but she has an open offer to intern at Channel 5 now. So now we have an initial pathway into Channel 5, which is also obviously really exciting. And what we shared with Danny is, you know, whenever she does that, we want to replace that with another MRH kid, We're going to get a little greedy on behalf of the district for those opportunities. Another project example from left to right. The logo you see in the upper right-hand corner is the new logo for our department, which was developed by Sarah Greenwood. So she's second one over there with the mask on facing the camera. So she went through a process with Mr. Schulteons and with Harlan McMacken, who has his back turned to show the back of the t-shirt. So Harlan is my brand manager, so he's worked on newsletters and branding and bulletin boards and all the things to kind of change the image of the school and the database, which wasn't his favorite, but he worked on the database too. And so really our department, the print shop, we were their client. And we did that in a way, we rejected a couple of things, and then we had an idea, and then Sarah pointed out if you put that idea in the wash of the logo. So we learned a lot of things together. And then all the way on the right is Chloe Moreland, who was interning through the internship class in the school store. And she sourced this, found the funding, did the sizing, found the right vendor, and did all the things to physically get the t-shirts into our hands. So again, I think this is the kind of thing, when we talk about authentic, the kids are physically wearing the t-shirts. Sarah sees her design there, and then Danny, you saw on the last slide, has now decided she's interested in graphic art. And she's working on some logos for some different things now. So things kind of mushroom out in interesting directions. Lastly, during the COVID pandemic, one of the things that I saw is the day we played the first home volleyball game was probably the first day the kids kind of had a new sense of things they were getting back some of the pre-COVID stuff. Just to have a volleyball game after school and to put on the school colors and all that, but at the same time, the parents couldn't come in. So, understandably so. So we broadcast just about all the home games. And so we're working with the tech department, folks in the internship class, and some other kids. So a neat story around that. The kids you see up there in the rafters at the gym broadcasting the volleyball game, the gentleman to the left is Michael Langston, who's a graduate of MRH who studied broadcasting. And then, obviously Michael's passionate about this. It was a wonderful, and congratulations, I saw the student athlete thing, that's well deserved. So that's the Matthew. So I get Michael and Matthew confused from time to time.
So does everybody else.
So the interesting thing is Michelle Ryan, who's a junior, she was one of our primary broadcasters. She wasn't in the internship class, but she got wind of what we were doing through the junior class meeting and wrote me this email that said, hey, I'm with speech and debate. I think this would expand my skills. I'm an athlete, She made this case. It's about a 400-word email, and like 50 words in, I was good. But Michelle decided she was going to make sure that she got behind the microphone. Her growth was terrific. Next to Michael in the other picture is Chris Works, who was one of the 2 interns that handled all the management and schedules and getting the equipment in the right place. And interestingly enough, as Chris is working on his final project, he's decided he doesn't want to be in management. So that's kind of what he learned after all this. And then there's several other kids were involved either in front or behind the camera. So during the time, and as a high school sports parent myself, I get a kick out of watching my kids do stuff. I know that's not a very slick way to put it, but just a quick anecdote behind that. On senior night, we have a senior by the name of Rachel Dickens who on senior night, the print shop helped us do little features that came up on the YouTube screen showing pictures of the kids that were seniors. And Rachel went to the broadcaster and said, hey, listen, my dad's out in California. He's never seen me play a high school volleyball game. And so at the end of the broadcast, they said hi to her father, Patrick, out in California. And Rachel the next day, against protocols, ran up and hugged me before I could, but she said her dad texted her right away. He was so happy to hear his voice and that she was thinking about him. So we learned the broadcasting, there was a message for the kids that it was a way to connect people. And so hard to say what the whole athletic department and everything looks like as we go forward, but for this point in time, it was really a time where the kids learned transferable skills, got out of their comfort zones. So
So where do we go from here? We want to expand this. We want all 412 or whatever our number is next year of kids to have this opportunity in some capacity annually, but ultimately like walking out of here when they graduate with those guaranteed experiences, with those memories, with those skills, knowing what they want to do and what they don't want to do. So we are looking to expand this, again, all of our teachers to really wrap around our metaphor in ways that we've never done before. We're looking at expanding into all the schools. Like really, the sky's the limit here because our kids are now asking the right questions. They are seeing opportunities popping up for their peers and they want to get involved. And you can see that from the numbers that Joe cited about how the kids that want to be in these classes has tripled within the last couple of months. And so that's really exciting. We realize that personalization is kind of the theme and how we can make that happen with consistency and at a systematic level, like he's saying. Expanding to those humanities departments, like we said, looking at what the English department can do, whether that's with Stuco or we have a lit magazine and we have a kid that really is interested in journalism. And so we're going to create an internship around that. So taking what we already have and just making those apprenticeship skills part of the experience is the goal here. So Joe will be working on summer curriculum here over those 3 courses. And in the fall, we're going to come back to you, September, October, hopefully, to kind of lay out where we go into the future. Like we'll have a few months ahead. All the summer work will be done at that point. A lot more, the database will be done so we can see what our current opportunities are, where our gaps are, and what our needs are. And that's what we'll be circling back to you all then. All right, are there any questions?
What are the plans for working with high school staff? I see it's metaphor as part of the professional development topics. We know there's a lot of things already on the PD schedule. Where will you infuse this?
So historically, the director has met with our teachers in the fall to work on one of the goals. And I think we're going to keep that as part of it, but making sure that the goals of the 5 talent ed goals that they have to do are much more concrete, and I'm tracking progress on them. It'll be part of our database experience now. I think talking about it generically, the days of that are over for me personally. So we're just like seeing, how is every teacher really wrapping around this, and what kind of speakers are we having? What kind of curriculum are we writing? What kind of resources are we bringing in? Do they have projects that they really are asking for interns, which actually is starting to happen now. And so it's happening organically. And so for the ones that it's not happening organically, Joe will be right there with them to start that process again around the goal setting, to be really purposeful and authentic with that.
And if I could just add, being new to what the school is now. At every floor of the building, you have really passionate academicians. And so this guy over here, I get a kick out of when we talk a lot, Mr. McCullum. I've been here about 2 days, and he said, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with your program. And so that's an interesting way to start a conversation when you've been there for 2 days. But he said, the humanities department is really good. How come we're not integrated? And I looked around and thought, absolutely. So on that 3rd floor of the building, she mentioned Ellie, who just did her mock interview and intro to internship with a publishing executive, and she's willing to mentor Ellie during the next year while she works with the student magazine. We have another student who wants to do an internship around teaching public speaking skills, and we're working on having her coach kids that are sort of pensive about the capstone project. And then the leadership thing with student council, we have 2 kids identified for that. So that floor of the building, but again, like you walk down this hallway, the math teachers are really good, the science teachers are phenomenal, so we have to keep working on it piece by piece. But I think that one of the many strengths of the school is Dr. Massey over here teaching physics is passionate about physics. So like there's so many examples of it. So we have to find ways to pull this together, make it part of who we are.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Sam.
So just really quick, I don't mean to belabor any longer, but I have lived through the apprenticeship program with 2 students of my own, and I know I'm looking at Francis because we have sat through countless presentations and we've really kind of been waiting for that jump start with it, just that what is going to be give it the fire in its belly. And I can say this is the first time I feel from a parent perspective that I've heard from my students that it has that fire behind it. It's so glad to hear that. In our last 10 days of this high school with them. But anyway, I am super excited to see where this goes, and pedal hard and pedal fast because you've got a lot of families excited.
I'm excited too. It was an excellent presentation.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next item on the agenda, CSIP update by Roxanne.
All right, so we will look at the human resources update, and there is a document there attached for you to look at, which I will not read to you, but I do want to just report out about where we are with our goals. And so there were 3 main goals in the human resource section of our CSIP. The first was to make sure that we were maintaining our small class sizes while increasing our academic offerings through creative and innovative staffing plans. So for those of you that have been on the board for a long time, we put together a 7-year staffing projection. We are in year 6. If you look at that column of what was accomplished and you see the number of positions we've been able to add in the last 6 years to accomplish those goals, to accommodate growth, to expand elective offerings, and more importantly, to support our social, emotional, and academic interventions programs, it's almost staggering. I got really tired when I looked at that list and thought about, what we collectively have done together to find the funding and do the creative moves to make that happen. So I'll put that in front of you. It's still to be done, so you've heard a little bit of the work tonight. So when we look at what has not been done on those staffing projections, this year we're rounding out with a social worker and a Project Lead the Way computer science teacher at the high school. We are still going to see, we probably have another 2 to 3 years worth of enrollment growth at the high school. The first wave of that full enrollment are freshmen this year. So that means that in the next year or 2, we know for certain that we're going to have to add a humanities teacher. They are the only department now that does not have 4 full staff members. And we also know that we're going to have to add some elective teachers. And if you heard their presentation carefully, part of that program evaluation and why I've asked them to stagger it is I also believe we're going to have to add some staffing to make what you heard, our dream, a reality. So one of the questions that we continue to ask ourselves are, who's not currently being served adequately by our current staffing, and what kinds of changes or configurations do we need to do? Are there things that we need to discontinue or reconfigure? And what do we need to expand to better meet student needs? And so those are things we continue to look at, but I did want to give you a little preview of where we still have to go, and as well as a look back in terms of all of the things that we've been able to do. The second area in the human resource area was our making sure that we're providing high quality staff development, and I know you've received program evaluations every single year from the PDC. The things that I would highlight for you is in every year that we've done a program evaluation, we've had very high levels of satisfaction among our PD programming If you remember, year before last, we did an equity study about what we were expending our money on and how that was distributed among content areas, grade levels, and buildings. And we found that we had equitable distribution of expenses, which was important to PDC. Our highest level of training in the last 6 years has been in K-6 ELA and K-6 math. That makes sense since there are a whole lot of elementary teachers that need that core training. And so volume, I think, is part of that response. Our building expenses over that time have been really focused in key areas of development. So we have spent quite a lot in training on trauma-informed and restorative practices, social emotional learning. We've spent quite a lot on equity and culturally responsive practices, as we talked about earlier tonight. We've done social emotional learning training as well as crisis response training. So at the building level, those are the big buckets where the money has come. And then based on our CSIP, we did develop that 4-year training progression. We are in year 6 of that progression. We added each year at a time, and we have been evaluating and reconfiguring. We have over 65 teachers who've completed all of the phases of that process. And we are working with the PDC to figure out how we can effectively and respectfully integrate in folks who may have missed those training progressions because they were hired before they existed. So we don't want to make folks go through training of things they already know, but we also can tell that that training's making a huge difference in terms of how people are thinking holistically about our core structures. And then we have continued tuition support. So in the 5-year period of this particular CSIP, we have provided tuition support for continued education for over 70 staff members. And then our last goal was to retain a diverse and highly qualified teaching staff. So there were a lot of components to this. One of the core goal areas was to maintain a competitive salary schedule. You can see that we were able to improve our salary schedule at 3 points during the 5-year period, and that outlines the work of CBTF and the increases that you have approved. Another goal was to make sure that we were doing something about our improving our quality of our substitutes and the consistency of our substitutes. So as a result of the CSIP, we did enter into a contract with Kelly Services. I'm asking you tonight to approve an extension of that contract because that's been working reasonably well to meet our needs. And then trying to ensure diversity of our MRH staff. This continues to be an area that we struggle. The pipeline in terms of teacher preparation statewide, there is a statewide teacher shortage. So we have benefited greatly in being a place where people want to work. I've not seen necessarily the extreme shortages that we're hearing about in other districts. We have been participating in multiple job fairs. We participate in many, if not most, of the area minority job fairs. We were a co-sponsor and continue to be of the Black Educators Conference. So we are doing what we can to be out and visible and attracting high quality applicants into our spaces. We also have very intentional structure for our hiring process and our hiring committees. But it is an area that, you know, we still need to do better. So that's something we continue to look at, is how we can attract the most diverse staff that we can have. And then the final piece here is the highly qualified criteria. So we want to make sure that when we bring staff members in, and I always tell them, we want this to be a place that's a good fit for you because we want you to stay a long time, and we want to make sure that we have a highly qualified staff. So we have for a number of years had 100% staff members are not only appropriately certified, but they meet the highly qualified standards in areas where we have specialization, and that is really important to us, that the folks that we bring in, our kids deserve high quality, fully appropriately certified staff. So that's kind of the rundown of where we are now. You know, we continue to ask questions about how we can continue to diversify our staff, how we can not just attract applicants, but also to, actually Benita and I were just talking about this earlier before the meeting, how do we help that pipeline? How do we find students that we believe would make high quality educators and assist them in potentially choosing teaching as a profession. And so there is some state money that's currently available in the coming school year for school districts that might want to pursue kind of grow your own programs where we can prep future teachers and or help support them with the idea that they would come back and teach for us. And so that's something I'm very interested in. And we'll just continue to work on this and work for ways that we can, move the needle on that particular goal. But I will just say, I've said in a number of commissioner meetings this year alone, they're very, very worried about a teacher shortage moving forward. Many of the twin pandemic issues have caused a lot of folks not only to reconsider entering the profession, but we do see folks leaving the profession. And so I'm hearing just lots of struggles with our more rural school districts, and some of our neighbors are having issues that I have not yet seen here. So I feel very fortunate with the pools that we are currently attracting.
Thank you for that, Raquel.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to summer athletics, Amber Jordan is chapter.
Amber cannot be here tonight. She has some family issues that she's attending to this evening, so she sends her apologies, and she sent Kevin.
So she sent her apologies because she can't be here, or because she said.
I'll just leave that for you to decide. No, we're very happy, Kevin, you're here.
So I'm excited to be here. As you all know, athletics for us, a lot of students self-work and stuff like that. So we want to make sure we can provide that as best we can. And so we've done some work, and really Amber has done 95% of this, so I am just the voice box tonight. And I won't go over any line, but I think some of the key points on each slide I'll point out. For example, number 2 and 3 talk about athletes wearing face covering. Our coaches are anxious to get going for the summer workouts, okay? And they're asking us daily, can we do this? Can we do it? Well, wait. We've been telling them to hold off, and so we're excited to be able to give them some clear key information. Again, we plan to follow whatever St. Louis County tells us to do. Simple as that. And we've been doing that. We continue to do it at school. We plan to do the same thing in the athletic realm. So that's our goal. Let's go to the next one. As a side note, we've had a lot of kids vaccinated here at school. And again, it's not something we ask them, but we offer the opportunity. And so daily I probably get 15 to 20 emails from parents that just volunteer and say, my son or daughter is vaccinated. Because I send out the reminders, hey, we have a clinic here today, we have one Saturday. And it's overwhelming the amount of people that are getting vaccinated. It's a good thing. Well, like I said, number 2 is my key point for this presentation. We plan to follow the CDC and the health department guidelines. And at any point, we reserve the right as administration to shut something down that just doesn't look or feel right. If we say this isn't what we said, we're going to start over and try again or fix that problem. So we won't hesitate. We do that at school all the time. When we see students doing things that aren't, one of our safety protocols, we address them. We'll do that in sports realm as well. This is a voluntary act. Again, no one is forced to do this, and the students come in knowing this. And again, for us to be competitive next year, and I'll use basketball as an example, we're the only public school in the metro area not to play basketball. And so if you think those students and parents aren't calling me chomping at the bit, and I am one of the parents, so in all full disclosure. Well, I'm okay because my sons haven't put the work in. This is a personal side story. To get the effort that I think they should be doing. So
if I could interject just a little bit, I think that number 5 is a key point. Amber sat with me for quite a long time as she was putting this presentation together, and I think what she would want to express to you is summer camps and training are very important for the continuity of our programs because we had a whole year off. She's finding that students that are wanting to sign up for programs are less, and she's very fearful that some of our sports may not make it if we don't put in some extra time and effort this summer to reintegrate some kids that may have dropped out of that process.
It's a good point. When we did reintegrate some of the sports this spring, we did struggle to get students back. Our numbers were not what they typically are.
Particularly in female sports.
Yes, softball. Okay, let's go on. This is just some county guidelines about masking indoors and outdoors, and at the bottom, it's the players and officials are not required to wear face covering while engaging in vigorous physical activities. That's outdoors. Right? It depends what sport we're talking about here. But indoors, we plan on wearing masks at all times. Here's a list of camps that we're working on for our various sports and the dates that accompany them.
I think you can go in there.
Now, the Basketball Summer League is something that was Coach Hunt has been working on, and again, we haven't made this official yet, with the idea of making up for some lost time and being sure that we do it right. Again, we're not allowing fans. I have agreed to be at every game myself to make sure that we follow these rules. We set the calendar up so I could do that. It would be a 4-week league, starting June 11th, ending June 30th. And the games would be pretty fast. It's a 32-minute running clock. That means you stop the clock in the last 2 minutes. You know, for fouls. We have official referees that we're hiring. We will not have huddles. It's going to be go out there and play, get out, next team, come on. No fans allowed. Try to keep it as simple as we could. Players get dressed before the game, come ready to go. We're not going to use locker rooms except for emergency uses. And the rest of the building, we plan to close it off. And everybody brings their own water bottles. There's our water fountains in the gym. We haven't turned off. Okay, Chris, the next one. We do a volleyball conference with our league. Every year, and our league consists of Bayless, Hancock, Crossroads, who am I forgetting, Vince? Brentwood, of course. So there's only 2 nights for it. Notice the dates, the 24th of June and the 15th of July. 2 games per night against the schools. They are allowing spectators. Again, this is not something we're hosting. So 2 spectators per person. And recently we've done that for our baseball team, which worked out pretty well. Maria was there. So we have some experience with that. Now our weight room, as you know, is pretty small. We do have a plan to open that up throughout the summer for our athletes to, the strength train. And we do have a running club that we hope to offer as well. We don't have more than 8 people allowed in that room at a time, and we do open both garage doors for varying reasons. We do sanitize the equipment. Joe Spinks is very thorough with that. And we do wear the face coverings. I was in there today after school with some of the kids working out, and it's amazing because I feel like taking them. It's very humid out here. You've been in there, you know, it's a sweat box, and they don't take their masks off. Maybe it's because I was there, but I was forced. I felt like I wanted to do it. They don't do it. So our kids are well trained. Our kids are so good at following this. We have very few any problems throughout the day, and we anticipate that to continue. So that's, I think, the last slide. Correct, Chris? Anybody have questions?
I'll just tell you, I sat with Amber very thoroughly and went through all of this, and we went sport by sport to relook at guidance. She has done a really good job for you, making sure that we're following the guidance, and we've not had any instances, and so I feel very confident with her plan for summer.
This is not on for a vote.
It is not on for a vote. I didn't know that you'd feel you needed to. We just wanted to inform you of what the plans were moving forward.
We appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could just add to it, as being the sports mom for 10 more days, easing into it, I've said this in the last meeting, I'm going to say it again, I've been highly impressed with our coaches, so thanks to Amber, but through the coaching staff, the district administrators that show up, I have confidence that you'll continue with that. And thank you for doing this and giving kiddos that didn't have the opportunity to live their sports this opportunity.
Thank you.
I think just like what you said, our staff, our families, community, our students especially, everybody's really been doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, buildings and grounds update, Chris.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. I will give you a brief update of some of the goings-on of the Buildings and Grounds Department this month. The elementary gym floor, you'll remember earlier in the winter when we had that cold snap, we burst a sprinkler pipe, and it flooded pretty much the whole first floor of the elementary school. Not the least of which was the parquet gym floor. So the insurance company deemed that floor was a total loss and it was replaced. It's now completely finished and operational. Kids are using it. Elementary water damage, mentioning that burst pipe, all of that has been completed. Luckily, if the buildings do enough, they have to do all the testing, asbestos testing, lead testing, before they open any walls up. Luckily, they didn't have to open any walls up. So the damage was pretty minimal when it comes to, it didn't enter into any of the walls. Also, that whole office is going to be demoed in about a month's time, so we were able to minimize some of the impact there as well. The ECC cottage, it is now open. There's just a few things left on the punch list with some of the contractors that did work for us. Cindy has been working with Color Art to get furniture selected and on order. So we'll make that last order. We'll probably enter that order tomorrow for the E4 furniture. And E4 is now using that space. So Mr. Lyons is over there working hard and enjoying that new space with temporary furniture until the new stuff comes in. And one thing that we learned, the first hard rain that we had after we installed said cottage, was we have now a standing water problem that was unforeseen on the back side of that trailer. So Manny's been drawing up some specs to send out to vendors to get estimates. He's got a plan. He's worked with a couple of the engineers and some of the local firms to make sure that we have a good plan in place, and we'll get that done as soon as possible so that we don't have standing water around our nice new cottage. On to transportation. So we met with our salesperson from Central States. He stopped by yesterday for a conversation, and our buses are being built as we speak and are on track to be delivered sometime in July. Just as a reminder, we're getting 4 gasoline-powered buses, and the bus drivers are pretty excited. We're getting the new Roush 7.3 Godzilla motor in those buses, so they're excited about having that additional power that our existing buses do not have. And also, with our commitment to green schools, we are getting 4 propane or auto gas powered buses. You'll remember that we tried to fit in a propane tank on the back of the parking lot to fill ourselves. That didn't work out. We needed a place to put our trash dumpsters after all. But AmeriGas has agreed to come and fill us up a couple of times a week. So that's great news for us. I will also say, I didn't write it down here because I didn't want to write a paragraph in a bulleted list here, but Buildings and Grounds Transportation Department is still operating at least 2 drivers down. You may have gotten wind from some of our community members about late buses and having to leave a little bit earlier for sports contests and such. Cindy Northern and her team of drivers have done a fantastic job of adapting and making sure that kids are getting home. They may be getting home a little later than they used to, but they are getting home, and they're getting home safely. Our drivers are doing it, are making the adjustments and covering each other. We've got our head of maintenance, who's CDL certified as well, who's jumping on a bus whenever he needs to. We've got our lead custodian here at the high school, middle school that's driving. So it's all hands on deck. We're getting it done, and I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that transportation department has gone
above and beyond.
Above and beyond, yes, thank you. Above and beyond to get our kids home. Any questions?
Thank you. All right, you're still up with Randy.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Randy Charles. He's from LDR. It's a consulting group that helps us out from time to time when we have a need. We have a need now for an owner's rep for this big construction project that we're about to embark upon. Randy has done a lot of things in education. He's been a teacher, he's been a CFO, he's been a superintendent, so he has that breadth of experience to, I think, keep a really good eye on this project for us, and I'm going to let him talk through some of the most recent goings-on.
Good. Thanks. It's good to see everybody face to face. I said it on your, I guess, the virtual meeting last time. We talked about documents. But yeah, again, I'm Randy Charles. LDR is a group of basically a bunch of retired folks, retired superintendents and various walks of life. Mike Whelan, you're obviously very familiar with Mike, and Mike has some issues he's dealing with, so they asked me to step in and help out. So I have been trying the last, I guess, about 2.5 weeks, playing a lot of catch up, trying to see what's going on. You guys have obviously been very busy with all the design phase and the planning and so on, and you're very much in transition now. You're ready to award contracts hopefully later this evening. Those are in front of you. And then we transition into the actual work. So probably the best way to describe our focus right now, 3 things: calendar, communication, and coordination. We talked to the 2 general contractors day before yesterday, I guess it was, and their timeline. Wachter is the general contractor for the work at the Early Childhood Center and at the elementary. The work they have needs to be done this summer. So the timeline is what it is there. Trico is the general contractor for the high school, middle school project. There are certain things to be done this summer. Primarily, it's going to be relocation of the utilities coming into the building. So it's relocated and begin to work on that particular addition later. When I talk about calendar, if you're familiar with the construction world right now, pandemic has hit hard. Prices went through the roof, but those prices that the contractors quoted us, those are firm. They can't bounce those up. Those are going to be firm. But we will have to work with them to really get things ordered quickly, because the bigger challenge is lead time. There are some materials, if you order today, you'll see it 6 months from now, 8 months from now. So we're really having to coordinate that with the contractors now, and that was some of our beginning conversations. It's causing you not only to adjust your timeline, but maybe even phases. For example, here at the high school, there's so many things going on. Maybe they were going to do one piece of the project first, another one second, and they may have to change around their phasing to accommodate any construction materials issues. The coordination piece, wow, listen to Kevin's presentation on what's going to happen just here this summer. The last thing in the world we want is for them to have a group of kids up here expecting to work out and there's no electricity or there's no water because contractors cut it off. So working with Chris, we're going to meet with all of the principals, hopefully we're shooting for Monday if schedules work out, to begin talking about the summer. What do they have planned? What are kind of key cutover points for contractors and so on? The other piece of coordination is actually moving office staff. I know that the district office staff here needs to relocate. Once they do so, then the general contractor is going to move into that space and use that. Save some money. They don't have to. They didn't have to charge us for bringing a job trailer on site, a variety of other things. The elementary, I guess they're going to relocate to the ECC. Is that correct? The office staff is. That contractor. Chris asked him, when do you want to be in there? He said, well, what's your last day of school? June 10th. So, well, we'd like to be in there June 11th. Well, that's not going to happen. But that's how tight their time frame is, because they have to have everything done and ready for that building to reopen for your kids this fall. So we're really focusing on the calendar. We're focusing on the coordination. And then, of course, communication. We want to make sure the building principals and the staff know what's going on in the building. We want to make sure you have the information you feel that you need. Like Chris mentioned, I've been at this a while, and every board has its own unique set of expectations. So part of what I have to learn is, what is it you want to know? So don't hesitate to tell me. I'm pretty thick skinned. I've been at this a while. So just tell me what information it is you need to know. We'll get that to you. Because ultimately, you're the decision-making body, and we want to make sure that you have the info you need to make good decisions. So, in essence, that's where we are. We're doing a lot of talking, a lot of communication, starting to coordinate the work that's going to happen this summer. And if you have questions, I'll either answer them or I'll find the answer and get back to you. So, what can I do? What can I help you with? Anything?
I mean, I think that commitment to, are we on time? Are we on budget? And if we aren't, how are we, mitigating that is really all we want to know.
And the communication of that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So just, I don't want to ask for like weekly reports or anything like that, but I'll leave it up to you, you're the expert, but just know this board is going to want to probably be in the phase of almost over communication at the onset of this, just because things are going to look different to our community, and they're going to start coming and asking what's going on here, what's the plan, when are we going to be able to release it in time for the start of school. So we can start by over communicating, and then we can kind of tell you how to scale that back.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Randy and I discussed yesterday or the day before, it all runs together these days, getting together with Ed and making sure that we've got a good tight communication plan, not just for the board, but also for the community, to make sure that those phases are clearly communicated and everyone's in the know as things happen. Because of the material shortages that Randy mentioned, and alluding to shifting in phases, we've promised our community a certain set of outcomes, and if we're going to deviate from the order of those outcomes, we need to make sure that we communicate that. So we're all over that, and as we ramp up this project, we'll make sure that we have that plan in place.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, ready for the Chris show?
Let's do it.
All right, finance.
All right. Project this here. The items of interest do a good job of hitting the high points. Local revenues, which includes our property taxes, are right around 84%. We did get word from the county collector that the protested taxes were finally released at the end of April. So we are expecting those in, it's really late. It was late last year too, just different excuse then. We will be getting those taxes in the month of June, which, this is always the scary time of year because that's a pretty big chunk of money, and we've budgeted and we're waiting for it. So everyone's kind of in the same position that does what I do and doing this a lot. But we're confident, our collector's confident that we're going to get those funds as soon as possible in this fiscal year. So that's important that you know that. County revenues, right where you're supposed to be. State revenues, we just got the finance memo for May, and they're going to hit the state adequacy target, which is fantastic. There's no proration factor, at least at this point. The governor's released another large sum of money into the educational sector, so the formula is going to be funded. And then, but there are some aspects that will, due to things being shut down, some under collections. So we can't expect that. But again, state revenues are a very small percentage of our budget, so we're not expecting much impact there. Federal revenues, this year it's been very interesting. Roxana took you through the CARES, the GEARS, the ESSER, all of the acronyms for all of these state, federal, county grants. We are anxiously awaiting the governor's signature on ESSER 2 so we can start that drawdown. We've got all of those dollars allocated already. We just need to get the revenue to balance off the expenditure. So we're ready to go on that. Well, I don't have my expenditures, so I've gotten cut off. On the expense side, it is what you would expect, and what I've shared with you in prior months. The purchase services supplies is up extremely due to COVID. All of the various mitigation supplies, cleaning, PPE, additional contracted busing services, all of those things that were required for us to get our kids back. Purchase services are down, and we look to finish the year pretty strong. I'll be bringing you that final budget amendment in June to true up the revenues to be what they're actually are, and at that, as we get closer to June and we're wrapping up our final expenses, we'll when we have our budget workshop, I'll have a really good idea where we're going to end the year. And let me skip to the I'm just going to have to bounce out of this so I can actually see what I'm looking at. Okay, so right now we are budgeting a 38.5% fund balance at the end of this fiscal year. That will be different when the next time you see it, so I'll warn you about that now. I do expect it to be slightly better. So we'll see. You know how money is. Money in the bank isn't counted until it's actually in the bank. So we'll, as soon as all those revenues come in, we'll have a better idea where we're going to land. Any questions? Great. I believe I stacked these so I can just scroll to the next one. We'll go back into presentation mode. So in February, a couple years ago, I started in February bringing you little slices of the budget as they're developed. So that way we don't have to have a marathon budget workshop, which I know you all appreciate. But what that allows us to do is to share with you incrementally as the budget develops over time. So here we are nearing the end of it. Projected revenues are about where we would expect. The tax rate has gone down because the assessments have gone up. That's how that dynamic works. Also, one thing that is drastically affecting revenue growth as it relates to tax rates, or excuse me, tax receipts, is the CPI. So CPI this past year was 1.4. We're used to 2, 2.5, 2.3, somewhere around there. 1.4, and because of Hancock Amendment, we are able to realize the lesser of 5% revenue growth, or excuse me, AV growth, or CPI. CPI is the lowest common factor, so that's the revenue growth that we can expect. So I am looking for a little bit of a recoupment, working with the auditor, state auditor's office to work through that, and we'll let you know. Sales tax, we are expecting that to increase slightly as businesses ramp back up their operations. Basic formula is the same as it was last month. Proration factor, we're factoring that in right now. Of course, the state budget is also a fluid document, and as their revenue streams are confirmed, they adjust that proration factor. So that's what we're going to budget it so far. This is where we're at on the revenue. So all said and done for operating funds, we're at right under 24 million, 23.8, which is about $1 million up. But remember, we adjusted the revenue budget down significantly to account for our loss in local revenue due to preschool and Discover Club, especially Discover Club and preschool. Those are two huge pieces of our revenue budget that we weren't able to realize this fiscal year. Also, sales of food to students is another large aspect. Just a graphical look at those revenues. Positions that we've talked about. Expenses have moved around a little bit. Roxana's doing her magic and getting me updated numbers on salary. I haven't quite gotten a true sense of whether we're over or under, but we're looking pretty flat right now as it comes to, as we're bringing new folks in to replace some of the folks that are exiting. So I always appreciate her hard work there. So ESSER, that says ESSER 2, it's ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. They're going to be offsetting those salaries moving into the next year. She mentioned earlier the teaching assistants, some permanent sub positions, transitional positions, social emotional type work that we'll be doing with students, making sure that that learning loss is accounted for and mitigated. Benefits, there's nothing new here. The 7.5% increase due to our claims ratios. There's really not a lot we can do with that. We have had a couple rough years, and it's a 3-year rolling average. So, as we have a light year, we'll be able to move that out. Willis Towers Watson and the CSD Insurance Trust do a good job of keeping us informed and additional options where we can perhaps realize some savings. So, as we move into this next year, the Compensation Benefits Task Force always takes a look at some of those items. And they have some pretty interesting items coming up for this next year that we'll explore. Purchase services, this moved a little bit from last time I shared numbers with you. we are going to be offsetting those purchase services budgets mostly for virtual with the ESSER funds. Supplies are decreasing, which is, it's a huge decrease. I mentioned that we had a huge increase due to COVID. Well, we're decreasing in kind. I am carrying a bit of a contingency on the budget right now in the event that something else happens. Plan ahead and hope for the best, plan for the worst. So being very conservative on the supplies budget at this point. Capital outlay, again, most of these have been moved into the bond projects. However, I'm taking a real close look at the facilities plans that Mike was working on, making sure that we have the projects that we've slated to keep the periodic maintenance and those types of things. So I expect capital outlay to shift a little bit between now and the next time we talk about these things as I get my head around that plan. Debt, this is a fixed item. Has not moved since last time. Again, total expenditures here. And then here's we could just talk about this one. This is the bottom line. And right now, I'm showing a little bit of a surplus. And what's saving us there is the federal grant monies related to the American Rescue Act. So that's going to carry those positions that we added and allow that offset to not adversely impact. You also see that $1 million deficit on this current fiscal year. That will also look different next time you see that as we book those receipts once they come in. But all in all, unless there's something unforeseen that we need to budget for or in the budget that we haven't discovered yet, we will be right around that 39–40% fund balance, which is a good, healthy place to be. However, exponential growth occurs as the years progress. So we'll continue to keep a close eye on it, budget conservatively on both the revenue and the expense side. I think the entire culture around finance in this district is very, very strong, and everyone's committed to making sure that we're good stewards of our taxpayers' money.
Is that 39.3 subject to change if you're ending fund balance?
It is. It scales directly to
whatever.
It moves around.
Above 38.5, that's less.
Exactly. So next steps, continue preparing these expense budgets. I spend time every day looking at those and making sure that things are right. A lot of that time spent today, so my eyes are a little bloodshot from that. But we'll continue preparing that budget document and get that ready for you for the budget workshop next month. Any questions?
No questions, thank you. Small digestible pieces are much easier for us.
Very much.
Quite welcome.
Speaking of the budget work session.
Oh, is that the next thing?
Next.
Okay, I don't have a slide for that. So what we started doing, and one of the outcomes of us having an incremental mini budget workshop every month starting in February, is we can get through the regular budget workshop relatively quickly. So I'm proposing that we do the budget workshop like we did last year, which is at 6 or 6:15 prior to the regular board meeting on June the 17th. If you were available, that would be in kind with what we've done in the prior year. And then I need to have another meeting, which would be relatively short. That's where we review the end of year financials, the final budget amendment, the final warrant list, the last payments for the year. And I'm proposing we would do that, if the board is agreeable, on June the 29th. That's a Tuesday evening. I feel like we could get through that meeting in 30 minutes.
I'm good.
That's usually pretty short.
You good for both?
Yep, that works.
Is everybody good?
I will not be here, but you will be in good hands. I'll be hiking in Iceland.
Katie,
So what time on the 29th?
Fine.
You want to do a 6 o'clock or 6:30? On the 29th? 6?
I prefer 6 if possible, if you're gonna keep it to 35 to 40 minutes,
Yeah. It'll be my goal, Maria.
All right. That's the 29th, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then 6 or 6:15 on the 17th?
Yeah, you know, last year we did it at 6, and I think we were done by 6:30. It gave us a window, 6:40 maybe, a window before the board meeting. Whatever time you set, I'm sure I can keep it to that, so.
Why don't we do 6:15?
Okay.
That'll still give us a little cushion, but
Sure.
give people a little more time for dinner prior to.
And I'll practice using less words. Okay. I believe I'm still up, yes?
Yes, COVID expenses.
Okie dokie, here we go. COVID expenses. These do look a little bit different from the last time I shared them with you. Excuse me a second. Seem to have dropped off. Here we go. Let me project these real quick for our guests at home. Okay. So again, these are going to move around. One of the exercises that we go through back in the business office is as we're allocating funds, reallocating funds, when the grant monies come in, we do a reallocation. So that's going to make these look different next time you see these as well. So once those ESSER funds come in, Audrey's been working on getting the disbursement or distribution adjustments done, and by the time you see these, hopefully those receipts from the Fed will be booked and the expenses will be moved, and these numbers will look a little bit different. As of right now, we're about $628,000, so $630,000 on the expenses side in additional directly related to COVID. That's been offset by monies we've received thus far, somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000. We do expect that to go up quite significantly within the month.
And the interesting thing about all of these grants is they all have slightly different purposes, but they have extended your ability to apply them back in time almost to the start of the pandemic. So we've been working as a team along with our federal programs coordinator to try to determine the most strategic way to do that. That would take care of our past expenses, but also leave us large chunks of money to do the things that we've identified that kids will need next year. So you are going to see some things move around as we've been trying to figure out how the things that we need to pay for best match the chunks of money that are currently available.
I was on the phone with our federal programs person for quite some time this week as we were trying to do that very thing. I'll tell you, we will do cross-year if we absolutely have to, but it gets a little messy, and I prefer to keep things in the year that they happen. But like Roxana said, that cross-year may end up being one of the strategies we employ. So we'll let you know.
If they don't release the money soon enough, we will have very little choice. But
Which, again, it's not a big deal. It's just, for me, it's cleaner on the book side.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
All right, board communications and discussion, calendar of events. We are almost at the end. We've got vaccination clinic this Saturday, so 9 a.m. in the gym. May 26th is the CBTF work session. May 31st, of course, is Memorial Day, so everybody be safe, please. Then we've got June 10th is the last day of school, is that right? Looking good. Is there anything else that anyone wants to point out on the calendar?
Just quickly, the June 3rd board work session, which will be with HYA, plan for that to be a Zoom work session, since they're not gonna be able to travel in on that. Brandy and I will be able to report more tomorrow. We're gonna do a planning meeting with HYA tomorrow.
Thank you, Maria.
And then one last thing, come out and support the senior parade. I think, I don't remember what day that is, it's coming up.
June 6th.
The community rallied around last year. We hope to see the same kind of response this year.
Yes, and graduation is the 10th. Okay, moving on to Joe's Place. Joe's Place is having a fundraiser also this Saturday at 7 p.m. It's too late to sign up for wine and cheese to be delivered, but you can still have it and participate in the virtual event, and you can still donate. So it's going to be awesome, and they just do such great work. So please support. Okay, board committee assignments. If you guys recall from our last work session, we had talked about the different committees that were open, and everybody kind of got a chance to hopefully look
the committees and decide which ones they want to be on. I actually don't remember how we did this last time. It's been blocked from my brain. But I think we just announced which committees we wanted to be on, is that right? You remember, Maria?
No, but I'll tell you what committees I want to be on. So.
Let's do it.
Is this something we could do over email in
Yes.
between meetings?
Yeah, I think we could.
If we could get the
See the
list, I know the list is on board docs, right?
The list is on board
So,
docs.
Kat, do you mind sending the list back out to the board by email?
Thank you.
And then just
Thank you.
communicate to Brandy.
So
but-
how about we say everybody sign up by next Thursday or let me know by next Thursday what committee you want to be on? Okay, cool. All right, moving on to board liaison report, Katie Kaufman.
I have not been following MSBA stuff very closely, but obviously folks know that the legislative session ended in a mess as usual. So I think we're still understanding the fallout. But that is all that I have to report.
All right, moving on to action items. Official election results from April 6, 2021 general municipal election. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the official election results from the municipal election held on April 6, 2021 as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Amber. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Food bids. I believe this was presented to us previously, is that right?
Last month, yes.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the food and supply bids for the 2021-22 school year as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Ralph. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to Kelly Services Agreement. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the continuation of the Kelly Services Agreement as presented.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Thank you, Rachel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Construction bid approvals. It looks like there's 3 of them.
Yes, it's Wachter for both the elementary and ECC, and Trico for the middle school, high school projects.
Okay. Do I have a motion on Wachter?
Can we approve all of them in one?
We probably
Do them all as one.
We'll do it all.
Yeah.
Recommend.
I move to approve the construction bid presentations as submitted.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Thank you, Rachel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to enter executive session?
I move to enter executive session in accordance with section 610.021, subsections 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 13, and section 610.022 of the revised statutes of Missouri on May 20th, 2021 for the following specific reasons: personnel matters, real estate matters, and identify student matters.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Ralph. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?